This is TWiT.
WannaCry is probably not the end of the line. Excellent article in The Atlantic today from Bruce Schneier, one of my favorite security guys. The Schneier blog is, really great. He talks in this article about the shadow brokers. This is the hacker group that embarrassed the NSA by dumping a lot of exploits onto the internet. That's where WannaCry's magic capability of spreading over your local area net came from the NSA and came from this shadow brokers dump. The shadow brokers now say, oh, we're not done yet. In fact, we're thinking of doing a dump of the month club because apparently they have quite a few more exploits from the NSA, and they don't seem to care much about publicizing them.
If this isn't an argument against stockpiling 0 days, I don't know what is.
Well, that's an interesting question, because don't you think that intelligence agencies also need hacking tools to...
Yeah, hacking tools are one thing, but stockpiling... We have a story that kind of picks apart the real nuanced reasons why, coming out on June 1st. But the basics are easy to understand, and that is, if there are 0-day exploits within a system, hacking tools are something different. You have to give Microsoft and other companies the ability to patch these holes. If you stockpile them, this will happen.
But if
leaks will happen.
But I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, please bring it.
But if the NSA and their hackers are working hard and they find, oh, this is great, we can use SMB1 to spread. By the way, they wouldn't do it with encryption, ransomware. They would use it to spread a eavesdropping tool onto all of the computers in the Russian embassy.
Yes. Wouldn't
they want to hold on to that? Why? If they tell Microsoft they can't use it.
And there is solid evidence. We are 6 years now, 7 years past Stuxnet. But there's solid evidence that Stuxnet put the Iranian nuclear program back by at least 3 years, which is what we needed.
That was a hack that ruined their centrifuges, so they couldn't enrich uranium, so they couldn't build a nuke, and that helped us negotiate.
And it targeted Siemens Industrial Control Systems,
SCADAs.
SCADAs. Yeah, right. And so I understand that argument, and I really empathize with people within the agency and within the NSA. However, I don't think any of that excuses stockpiling vulnerabilities that allow massive attacks like this to occur.
You guys agree?
Yeah.
It's a tough one, because I think, look, we all want to
it is tough.
We want the intelligence agencies to do their job. We want them to protect us from terrorism. We want them to do espionage as needed to protect us from foreign powers, who are, by the way, without any trepidation, stockpiling and spying on us. I don't think the FSB in Russia is having any debate at all about whether they should reveal these vulnerabilities.
Not a bit.
So don't we? Now, there was, under Obama, back in 2008, something created called the Vulnerabilities Equity Process. And the theory was all the stakeholders come to the table, and they actually had, it was actually quite interesting, a series of questions that they needed to ask about this vulnerability to determine whether the NSA should be allowed to keep it, or the CIA or the FBI, or should be required to turn it over. Let me see if I can find the questions that they ask. This is from EPIC.org, the Electronic Privacy Information Center. They have a lot of information about this VEP, and it's been around, as I said, since 2008. The questions seem completely reasonable. For instance, how much is the vulnerable system, in this case, in WannaCry's case, it would have been Windows, used in the core internet infrastructure, in other critical infrastructure systems, in the U.S. economy, or in national security systems? In other words, what's the danger? Does the vulnerability, if left unpatched, impose significant risk? How much harm could an adversary nation do with, or a criminal group do with knowledge of this vulnerability? How likely is it we would know if someone else was exploiting it? How badly do we need the intelligence? This is a really important one, the one the NSA is going to argue. How badly do we need the intelligence we think we can get from exploiting the vulnerability? So this is a cost-benefit analysis, right? The benefit would be, well, what do we get? Are there, and this is good too, are there other ways we can get it? Could we, let's say, utilize a vulnerability for a short period and then disclose it? How likely is it that somebody else will discover it? Can it be patched? or mitigated. In other words, if we tell Microsoft, can they fix it? The problem is this process, although it exists, doesn't seem to have been used much.
And there's liability that now affects people at tremendous scale. So when you have the agency working 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the vulnerability of intelligence leaks, you can mitigate the damage. If we look at what's happening with IoT and what we expect to see in the next 5 to 10 years, plus all of these really kind of poorly made firmware that's on all these IoT devices, right? Yeah. So the scale of damage.
Well, look at the Mirai bot. Which was,
precisely.
Yeah.
And because this, if you go to a pedestrian, a normal person on the street, and you say, hey, tell me about the 0 days. I go, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But there's a point, because the Mirai bot probably wouldn't. It was useful in creating a distributed denial of service botnet, but probably would not have been useful in targeted intelligence gathering, which is what the NSA is up to. So if they had discovered Mirai, that one under the vulnerability equities process would have been revealed and fixed. But they might keep something that allows them to say, hack your smart TV, because, well, we can get at, Ambassador Kislyak, we can see what he's up to by spying on him through his Samsung. I'm torn on this one.